the Deputy Chief of Indian Army Staff, he said that Operation Sindoor, India wasn't just fighting one adversary. I don't want to term it as enemy because it wasn't a state of war, it was a conflict, but said that, there were three adversaries. It was China, it was Pakistan, and there was Turkey. Now, what happened was that in this 3-day war, if I want to say, or a conflict, or whatever it is to be termed, weapon systems were being used like a laboratory. Now, General Asim Munir, of course, denied this, that it wasn't a three-front war that happened and there was nothing of this sort. What is your view on this? Was it really India fighting three adversaries at one go in those 3 days?
So absolutely, I saw those comments and I agree with them. There is some nuances for somebody who doesn't study war of proxy warfare. Clearly, Pakistan is a Chinese equipped military, so this is absolutely a test of Chinese military technologies, both for the rest of the world, but also for China. So it does use it as a lab of its technologies, and it will make changes. But you're right. I mean, India does share a border with China. Turkey does provide capabilities to Pakistan. I agreed with the comments. There are a lot of nuances there, even from a geopolitical perspective of China or any adversary to India using Pakistan and the borders to isolate India economically, militarily, in all aspects. There is a difference between a war, a named operation like Sindoor, which was a response to a terrorist attack that had a clear start and a clear ending, and this broader kind of state of conflict where nation states are trying to weaken what they view as threats, weaken their neighbors, which is unfortunate. I agree with those statements. A lot of nuances there, but absolutely a test of those technologies. There is an element of proxy warfare where it's kind of, geopolitically, that's, who has a military defense agreement with whom and what's the extent of it. But absolutely, this was a test of Indian indigenous systems versus Chinese systems. And everybody was learning from that demonstration because war puts everything to the test.
You're an infantry officer, but I'm throwing a curveball at you. I'm going to talk to you about the Navy, right? I just want to know that, there was a lot of talk about air power being used, and drones that were used. Let me talk to you about the Pakistan Navy. Why did the ships not leave the port? During Operation Sindoor, why do you think there wasn't much of action that you saw? And what happened to those Chinese frigates which have been docked out there? They haven't left the harbor. What happened there?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you're right. Although I was an infantryman, I do try to study. Even Sindoor isn't a story just about the Air Force. So much of the Army, I gravitate to that. I did watch the Pakistan military briefing about their naval operations, and supposedly that was a deterrence. It's part of the story that still has to be written. I believe personally that the Indian Navy has progressed to a point where it has achieved a deterrence, and that makes it hard to determine, okay, why didn't something happen on the Pakistan side, those frigates, what's going on? That makes it hard to tell when you don't know where the line is of somebody is being deterred or there's something else going on. That's a part that I'm still doing my research, but I will say strongly that this whole operation's success of military dominance was only achieved through that integration. And when the DGS and the DGOs all had that briefing, you could tell that that was a part of Indian superiority. It wasn't just in their capabilities, but it was the integration in real time of all those capabilities. One service being prepared to help the other service and assisting. Even in the response to the terrorist attack, I learned that 7 of the 9 terrorist locations were struck with Army capabilities, not Air Force. Not to say that one's better, but it is through that joint integration. But it's a great question that needs to be answered for sure.
Look, scholars like you are going to study this war and see the weapon systems which were used, what was successful, what wasn't, why, etc. Right? This is going to be some deep dive into it. I just wanted to know that if the Chinese weapon systems didn't work, their radars, their interception, if they didn't work, the drones, if they didn't work, do you see Pakistan shopping for stuff outside of China?
Absolutely. I mean, you would think we put rational actor theories, like if what you bought doesn't work, then you go back to the seller and say, this didn't work like it was supposed to. But you also don't know if it was user error, but absolutely they're going to try to identify all of their weaknesses and look towards what, but they have a money problem, right? So the IMF has to bail Pakistan out. So can they get cheap, and then they also want advanced, superior technologies, is a challenge for Pakistan and some other nations, but they'll definitely be looking at to integrate. This is again where the proof is in the evidence. I have a strong in my research, in God I trust, all others bring evidence. And for military capabilities, the evidence was in that video satellite footage, not in the words about how you said your Chinese system performed, but where's the evidence?
Do subscribe to the ANI Clips channel to get shorter versions of this podcast. Click here to watch the full episode.